We are the nerds. We are the nerds of the apocalypse.
Welcome, I guess, guys, to the X-Bros 2016 panel. I'm Chad Bowers.
I'm Chris Sims.
Chris Sims, we write the X-Men 92 book at Marvel. And see a lot of familiar faces out there. Folks that we know, folks we've seen at the table. And what we'll do probably is just kind of open the floor to you guys. If you guys have questions, we can kind of start there and let that dictate sort of how the conversation goes.
Does everybody know who we are? Show of hands? Okay, good. Okay.
I mean, I just said it.
Yeah, are they familiar with our work? Do we have to explain that we write X-Men?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's probably.
All right. So I think we're just gonna do a Q&A.
Yeah.
Free form. Jim Shelley, you had a question?
Yeah, dude. I like what y'all are doing with X-Men 92. I feel like that could be an Marvel event where you set all Marvel books in a 92 era. You know?
Yeah, I mean, they did that month where they did like the
92 covers.
The 92 covers where they had like all the. Although that was a weird month because
we weren't in it.
Because X-Men 92 didn't get a 92 cover, which is strange. But also they had like a Thunderstrike cover, which wasn't a 92 book. Thunderstrike didn't happen until like 94, 95.
Yeah, I think you're splitting hairs on that one.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, they're the ones that named it 92, not me. But anyway, but yeah.
Our version of 92 is from 92 to 97.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, but I think that at the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of people who would be interested in seeing something like that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. In the back there, looks like you have a question.
Why did you name Cyclops? Cyclops have one eye, but Cyclops has two.
That is absolutely true. We did not name Cyclops. Cyclops was named by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, but it's because when he wears his visor, you only see the one thing. So it looks like he has one eye.
He's got like one eye.
But he's not like a for real Cyclops. You are correct on that one.
Yes, sir.
I had a statement for y'all. I was gonna tell y'all, but I haven't got it. No, I ain't fuck that. Because y'all seen me before. Because if I'm not mistaken, the first time I met y'all was Cold Con, or the second one, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I talked to you, and I think you told me about the story of where you got denied from DC working on Batman, right?
I got a denial from DC.
Okay, so yeah, if it was you, wouldn't you kind of say that kind of makes up for it in terms with this kind of comic? Like in terms of.
Well, when I was in college, me and a local artist named Dre Lopez got invited to pitch on like a lot of the DC books.
Track, right?
Yeah. A lot of the DC books had like well, you guys remember there was like a backup story of Batman Black and White, and it was in Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights. It was in Gotham Knights, and so there was always an 8-page backup called Batman Black and White, which was kind of an extension of this miniseries that happened called Batman Black and White, and so we got one of those backups offered, and we pitched it, and Bob Schreck really liked it, and we were given the go-ahead to start working on it, but you know. Stuff happens, and you get kind of pulled in different directions on stuff like that. And yeah, it didn't come together. And by the time we got around to really trying to get things back on track with it, you know, Batman Black and White really was kind of gone at that point because that didn't last. I mean, I think they sure ran like 40 issues or something like that. Gotham Knights ran.
I mean, the backups did not go that long. Backups went about 2 years.
Yeah. So and we got that offer probably, I don't know, close to the beginning, I guess, of the second year. So they probably had a lot booked out anyway. But it was a story where a guy found, it was actually tied in awfully close to the Killing Joke in some ways, where a guy had found, had been tracking like the Joker's material for years and was like turning the Joker's like crimes and things like that into like a real comedy set. And so he was kind of like making this big joke of the Joker. And the Joker found out about it. And yeah, it was. But it was.
Oh, he's totally cool with it. Actually, it's a very short story.
Yeah, no conflict at all. And so, Robin, it's Robin's first encounter with the Joker is what it was. Yeah. So anyway, but we got turned out for that. Yes, X-Men sort of makes up for that.
Yeah, but I mean, like you're gonna get that when you're working in comics and trying to pitch stuff. You're gonna have stuff that you pitch and just gets flat out rejected. You're gonna have opportunities that look like they're going to happen, they don't. You had that. I had Final Fight. Everybody know the video game Final Fight from the 90s? I was like hired to write a 4-issue Final Fight adaptation in comics. And I was 10 pages into the first issue when the publisher essentially lost the license. Instead of getting the contract, I got a phone call like, hey, got some bad news. And it's very disheartening when that happens. It's very disappointing. But it's also one of those things where it's like, well, that's gonna happen. Nobody's first thing takes off. Flashback Universe I couldn't even get my third issue in because somebody didn't want me in on the cliffhanger.
Well, yeah, those things happen,
Rosie doesn't even like me anymore.
Yeah, but
We worked for Jim. This is our first comics job was working for Jim, by the way. Everybody give Jim a hand. Jim's great. Jim's the reason Chad and I became a writing team, actually.
Is that really true?
Yeah.
But you guys were doing the hard ones together.
No,
I wanted to pitch the hard ones to you.
The hard ones was our
Power Man hostess.
Ah.
And I was like, yeah, but I just got my licenses or whatever at work, and things were going crazy, and so I was like, yeah, you wanna write this with me? And that's kind of how we started working together.
Yeah.
Are y'all going to revisit that? I mean, that's really a great property. You should probably take it to Image or somebody.
I mean, we kind of can't, because again, Rosie doesn't like me anymore.
Yeah.
And Rosie likes me, he's fine, he just doesn't want to work with me.
Yeah. I don't know, it's
Rosie's the artist on that book. He's great, but he's out of comics now. He got, he's mostly known for doing, band posters and pinups and stuff. He does a lot of,
video games.
Yeah, he does a lot of video game-inspired pinup stuff. So he's kind of like, yeah, I'm done with comics. And I'm like, okay, all right.
Anybody else?
Yeah. I remember on CBR you answered a question regarding which would be the hardest Marvel property to adapt in the 90s, and you said the Fantastic Four. I don't recall that. I was trying to look it up. And I wanted to know if does that mean that you would only have to adapt it to the comics at that time, or would you have to adapt it to the animated series that was around at that time?
Oh, when I said that, I feel like I probably was just talking about the Fantastic Four as a concept, because I think the Fantastic Four as a concept works really well as sort of like tonally, it doesn't really have a lot in common with any. I guess you could say with the space origin kind of thing, it's certainly kind of tied into 60s and Race to the Moon kind of stuff. But beyond that, those concepts and those ideas are are so universal, and they don't really have anything that sort of sets them apart from that cements them in the 90s or the 80s or the 70s or anything like that. It's such a broad concept that I feel like trying to tie it to one era would be very complicated. What would the Fantastic Four in the 90s look like? Well, the Fantastic Four in the 90s would look like the Fantastic Four in the 80s, just a little bit different. You know what I mean? The Fantastic Four in the 2000s look like the Fantastic Four in the 70s, but just a little bit different. Same kind of stories, just general takes that kind of the internal conflicts are the best part of that book, not necessarily the situations, I guess.
I feel like X-Men is really easy to do as a 90s book.
Yeah.
Because the 90s were the era of the X-Men. X-Men #1, still the highest selling comic of all time. A lot of those characters were defined by the aesthetics of the time, especially, obviously the ones we're using, Wolverine, Psylocke, Bishop. Bishop could not have happened at any other time. He's a dude with a mullet, he's a space kid, he's a future cowboy with a mullet and a giant gun. But I think you can also divide Marvel into three really distinct eras. I honestly think this. And the first era is 1961 to 1980, and that's the Fantastic Four era. And then 1980 to 2000 is kind of the X-Men era, and then 2000 to 2016 is the Avengers era. So I think it would be really easy to do Fantastic Four 61, or I guess you want it to be when Galactus shows up, so Fantastic Four 66.
But see, even then, I don't think there's.
But I don't think it would be that different
period
from
base that kind of ties it,
Yeah.
I think when you look at the X-Men and you do X-Men '92, there weren't a lot of people in the '90s looking at the X-Men going this doesn't look like the X-Men, because it was kind of a nice gradual progression to get there. You know what I mean? The X-Men had different costumes, they had roster changes, they had aesthetic changes with different artists. I mean, you go from Cochran to Byrne to Paul Smith to who am I leaving out? Like there's other guys that eventually get you to Silvestri, and there's a broad sort of like stories and aesthetics that kind of go into that book that when you get to the 90s, like kind of everything works with the X-Men. And then you see like the Avengers sort of take the approach of becoming kind of a 90s property. And it kind of worked there because the Avengers, again, have like a really big rotating cast. They've had lots of different creators, lots of different looks. They put on the jackets in the 90s, and Cap starts wearing his mask, but wears like, headgear and all this other stuff. And but then when you get to the Fantastic Four, when they try to, 90s the Fantastic Four up, right? Like you get Sue with her legs showing in a boob window. You get Ben with a crazy like
pineapple.
Well, no, you get his mask. You get Ben's crazy helmet. You get Ben's face gets scarred up. Literally gets scarred up by Wolverine. Like the 90s come and like messed the Thing's face up, and now he's got to wear a mask. And then you get Johnny, and there's like a love triangle with stuff that doesn't quite make sense. And it's like it just like that kind of.
Reed doesn't change at all.
Well, Reed kind of does change. Reed
carries around a big gun.
Reed carries around a big gun. He grows a beard. Goes back in time. It's there's all this stuff that happens to it that doesn't feel that does feel very Fantastic Four, but doesn't look very Fantastic Four in some ways. And so yeah, I think that's why like nobody really cared about the Fantastic Four in the 90s. That's the problem.
So that's the cartoon.
But even that cartoon's weird. You know what I mean? That cartoon does the same thing that the X-Men cartoon does, where it tries to adapt like the greatest hit stories of Fantastic Four, but it just doesn't work.
Yeah, like one of the things that really works about the animated series, and one of the things that really influenced our approach on the book, is that you get the X-Men cartoon doing stories like Days of Future Past and Dark Phoenix, but the cast is all wrong. Because those stories happened with a cast that had Nightcrawler and Colossus and Kitty Pryde, and that 90s cartoon has Gambit, Rogue, and Jubilee, who are kind of filling those roles, but also kind of not.
Yeah.
And the Fantastic Four is just there's nothing that defines the Fantastic Four in the 90s in the way that the X-Men are so defined by the 90s.
Like you could visually do a 90s Avengers book, but like nobody would care, but you could make it look like that book. You know what I mean? But yeah, the FF just don't quite have that thing.
Yeah. There you go.
I forgot to answer that question. Honestly, you go on CBR. Yeah.
I think we could do a Superman 55, where it's multiple kryptonites and all that type of stuff.
Well, that's the thing. I think the thing about the X-Men is that there's so much to pull from. Because if you did do the Fantastic Four, getting back to that, the same kind of treatment for the Fantastic Four, really you would have to do boob window storm, helmet thing. Johnny in love with a scroll. Like there's like 6 or 7 high points that you hit, but you're done.
You're done.
But with the X-Men, there were like 6 books. Each one of those books had their own crazy, like hyped up realism and characters and suits and all this other stuff. So there's so much to pull from because that was really Marvel's book in the 90s.
Yeah, I would love to have the Fantastic Four show up for a story in an angle. If we were going to do an angle, I would love to see 90s FF and Jacket Avengers and Ben Reilly and Scarlet Spider show up in his hoodie. Yeah. But I don't think you could take those characters in the same kind of direction because like you said, there's no definitive Fantastic Four stuff to go to. But you do get to use the name Elijah the Laserfist, which is a very 90s name, and I love Elijah the Laserfist.
We should have done Fantastic Force though. Like we could do
the Fantastic Force works.
That's very nice.
Fantastic Force works.
Fantastic Force works right there. Anyway.
Do you have any other questions?
Any other questions?
This side of the room got anything? Okay, cool. Anybody else? Chad, what do you want to talk about?
I've got a question. How long does it, when you start on something, how long does it take it from inception to finish something?
It really depends on the project. I know that we worked on We worked on Downset Fight, which was our original graphic novel, for 2 years. We didn't work on it for 2 years, but it had to be drawn. But that was because before it was released, an artist had to draw 144 pages. And it took us a while to write the script too. That's 7 issues of like a regular comic. And then it took us a while to kind of crack it and get in from, I would say probably 6 months of that was just us working and writing the script and doing outlines and breakdowns and the artist doing concept art before we really got into seeing, finished art starting to come in. With X-Men, it was, I can tell you, I signed the contract on December 31st, 2014. So day 1 of 2015, we started working on it, and then it came out that summer. And a lot of that was pitching. We had one kind of weird idea to start with that didn't really go anywhere. And then it was a matter of, getting back to what Chad was saying about the 90s and kind of working in the X-Men. Our biggest problem with X-Men, the hardest thing to do with that X-Men book, is fitting it all in. Because there's so much X-Men stuff in the 90s. There's X-Men, there's X-Factor, there's Excalibur, there's X-Force, there's, there's Generation X. And plus we wanted to bring in stuff like X-Statix and all that. So trying to trim down that original pitch, Arcade was in the original pitch at one point, which I still kind of wish we would have done.
Well, the original pitch, the original pitch was different because we got the offer in October, I believe.
That's when we started talking about it.
That's when we got when we got the call to maybe do it, and we had by the time we got around to really pitching it, we had a pretty good idea of what we wanted it to be. Problem is we didn't quite know what the scenario was going to be with Secret Wars. So
they don't tell you what Secret Wars is until you sign contracts.
Yeah, because Secret Wars, you had to sign NDAs and all this stuff. So what we do is we kind of put it together and we try to figure out exactly what it's going to be first. And then they're like, okay, this is great. Unfortunately, this won't work within the context of Secret Wars. Because here's how Battle World works. And you're like, okay, so let's try to make the thing that we've already come up with work on this new frame. But it just wouldn't work. It just wouldn't happen. So we had to kind of really pull back and start fresh around December. And by the time we got something that really worked, it became more about less about plot and more about concept, I think, once we figured out kind of how Battle World worked.
And I think if you read that miniseries, you can see it's very, very heavy on the concept.
Yeah, it's
as opposed to the ongoing, which I think is very heavy on plot.
Yeah.
But it was fun. But as far as an issue, for instance, we basically just put number 7 to bed.
We did the
and here's how it works. We'll, Chad and I will get together and we'll write a script, and that usually takes us 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks, depending on how much we're working on it. And then it goes to the editors and they okay it, and then it goes to Alti, who's the artist on the book. And then after, Alti goes through and does, she's really fast. She'll do
she takes a little less than a month to do an issue.
She'll do a page a day. Sometimes we'll get one early and one late.
Yeah.
But then we go back through and we do a dialogue pass where we're just okay, well, we've got a lot of room in this panel. We could move this exposition up here. Sometimes we write just too much, and there's no way that dialogue is going to fit, so we have to trim it down and cut it. So we usually end up, doing that, and then once that's all on the page, we get one final pass where the editors have gone, literally gone through with red pens, and marked okay, bold this, don't bold this, add a hyphen here, spelling correction, stuff like that. So, we write that issue 3 times, and like I just said, we just finished up the lettering pass on number 7 last week. And we're writing number 10 now. So we're doing the first draft of number 10 now. Yeah. So we've still got to do 8 and 9 in terms of lettering passes and everything. So
you're never really done with the issue until it's out. You know what I mean? That's the thing, because 7 will be out at the end of September, and like I said, we just did the final lettering pass on that, and then that'll come back to us lettered, and so we'll be working on that probably 2 weeks before it goes to press.
Yeah.
I think maybe 2-3 weeks before it goes to press.
And then meanwhile, you got colorists and letterers are also working on it.
Yeah.
But when we used to do a webcomic, we were terrible collaborators. We were the worst.
We didn't know what we were doing.
We had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
We would write a page of script for Matt Diggs, who was our artist, and Josh, who was our letterer. the webcomic was on a Tuesday, Thursday schedule. It was supposed to go up at noon on Tuesdays and noon on Thursdays. We would literally be sending Matt pages Sunday night, Monday morning for him to draw and for Josh to letter. Like, we were terrible. Like, don't work with us in 2006. We're awful.
But, you know, this kind of gets back to, I don't know if anybody was in our panel from yesterday, but we talked about webcomics a little bit. And there's kind of a beauty to webcomics in that you actually can do that. You can write it and it can be that immediate, yeah.
Especially if you're a
nice
cartoonist
about
and
it, yeah.
working on your own. Like, it's like, if you can write and draw, you can wake up in the morning, do a page, and then it's online at 6 p.m. and then you're hearing about it at 8.
And one of the things I think that worked for us well in Awesome Hospital, and not to make this all about Awesome Hospital, but is that, you know, because of that immediacy, we could comment on stuff that was like happening. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, if I wrote X-Men number 9 today, which is not going to be out until like December or November, you know, what I'm writing about today may have changed sort of tonally in like the you know, society by the time we get to that point. Whereas with Awesome Hospital, something had happened funny on like a Friday, and we could make a joke about it on a Tuesday.
Yeah. We just did a Nick Fury story that just came out digitally. It's part of the Year of Marvels thing, where they just do a story with a new character every month. And we started working on it in January. I think that was the longest we've had to go from like starting a pitch to repitching to repitching to repitching to writing and rewriting and doing a new draft and is this too similar? We need to throw this out. Like when we were working on it, like we were doing a lettering pass on that the Monday before it came out, because when stuff goes up on Comixology, there's actually one of the X-Men miniseries. If you read the print version and you go and look at the digital version, they're different. The dialogue's different because we were editing the dialogue up to like the Monday before the Wednesday went out. Just so, it's not markedly different, but it's fixed. Like I don't like that line. Let's take it out. But that Nick Fury thing, it ran digitally 2 weeks ago. So
yeah,
a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
And I called Chad and I was like, hey, we should have done Nick Fury at the Olympics. Because it would have been perfect, it would have lined up perfectly, because they were all themed to the month. And we got August, where there are no holidays. There's just my birthday. And I couldn't get Chad to help me write a story where Nick Fury celebrates my birthday. But that was the thing we weren't thinking about in January. And then when that comes out in print in October, that would feel super dated.
Yeah. It would have been great for the digital.
It would be great for the digital, because it would have happened at exactly the right time.
Yeah.
And if we would have been thinking about it, I think we probably would have done it. But then when it comes out in October, we would be like, oh yeah, the Olympics. That was a thing 2 months ago.
Yeah, I just read one of the issues that came out. With each one of the issues, the print issues will collect 2 of the digital issues.
Yeah, so ours is there's a Squirrel Girl, Rocket Raccoon, or it's Tippy Toe and Rocket Raccoon.
Tippy Toe,
right?
Rocket Raccoon.
And so Nick Fury.
Yeah, so August and September will be the next one. And the one that just ended was June and July. And so the June one is about Father's Day, and the July one is about 4th of July.
Yeah.
But you're also reading those comics in August.
Yeah. The thing about that is,
Yeah.
next June and July, those stories are going to be fine.
That is
Next August, the Olympics are like, oh, was the Olympics last year?
Yeah. So the key to these particular stories is trying to find a way to tie it in, like either very specifically to the date, or to tie it in kind of tonally to the date. You know what I mean? And so ours is kind of tied to a little more like tonally. We ended up kind of having to figure that out.
Yeah. If you're not Japanese, you can read that story anytime.
Yeah, that's true.
So we said it in Japan because there's a Japanese festival called the Bond Festival that happens every August. So hope that extremely detailed answer was satisfactory.
So really, to ballpark it, not to get back to it, but like about 3 months. A comic takes about 3 months. Once you've got your pitch approved, once you've got everything taken care of, from like the point when you start writing it into the point when it's kind of ready to go off to the printer and come out so people can buy it or read it.
Fastest I've ever written
about
a
3
script.
months.
Fastest I've ever written a script was I wrote 24 pages in 2 days. This came right out perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm always hoping it's going to happen again, and it never has.
More questions?
I have another question.
Anybody else? Okay, well then we're back to you.
Sweet. So I was wondering what the relationship was like between a writer or writers and the artist for a comic book title, and like how exactly that works. So do you just give like a vague situation and then
I feel like the phrase we would use is arch enemy with artists. No. I thought that would go over a little bit better. No laughs.
Sorry.
No, it really depends on the project. We did Downset Fight, full script, 144 pages. We were doing Awesome Hospital literally page by page.
Yeah.
And then occasionally writing like 5 or 6 pages ahead once we knew what we wanted to do. With the X-Men miniseries, because of the format, because it was one of the Infinite comics, which are very, like, the artist completely controls the pacing on those. Nick Fury was the same way. But, like, the artist controls the pacing because the pacing is all visual. So, like, when you're reading that comic digitally and you hit, you know, the next page button, you get overlays, you get things moving around. So that we did what's called Marvel style, where you basically just write a plot and some dialogue so that, you know, get a feeling for what's going on in the scene. And then we'll go back in later and do a full script. For the X-Men 92 ongoing, we do, again, a full script, 20 pages, and then we tweak stuff in the lettering phase. So it honestly depends on the project. We do, you know, we always try to, when we start a project and we're working with a new artist, we try to be like, hey, what do you like to draw? Like, what do you like? You know, what are your influences? When you read the next arc of X-Men 92, you'll know exactly when we found out Ulti likes Dragon Ball Z. Because it's when the 5-page fight scene starts. But, you know, it's, like, honestly, like, the writer, good writing can't save bad art, but good art can save bad writing in comics. And so it's like, we're like, hey, what do you want to do? Like, what do you think this should look like? And also, like, if we come up with a new character, like Alpha Red, I don't want to say, we've got a new character coming up in the second arc too, like a big villain. It's like, you know, you're gonna have to be the one who draws this. So we'll give you a description, and you just draw the character the way you want to draw the character. With Alpha Red, it was literally just, okay, here's 70s Marvel Dracula, and here's 2015 Marvel Dracula. I want the midpoint between this. And Alti like did exactly that. Like with the red armor and everything.
Yeah.
But you know, she's the one who's got to draw it page after page after page. So
yeah, that's the thing. I think you know, you don't want your artist to hate you because your artist. You ask them to draw stuff that's like impossible to draw. Like you hear a lot of people talk about comics and they're like, oh, comics are great because they're better than movies because you don't have a budget. You know, you can just draw whatever you want to. And so
writers say that, artists do not.
That's what I'm saying. Like you hear a lot of people talk about how like the budget on comics is limitless, right? And it's like so easy for me to write. You know, a plane engulfed in flames is about to crash in the ocean. You know, and it's being surrounded by other small planes or something like that. You know what I mean? And to me, that's like maybe 4 sentences. And then the artist might have work on that for like 2 days. You know what I mean? And just be miserable while they're drawing that because that's not necessarily the most fun thing to draw. And so it's very difficult. Sometimes you'll have a place where you're like, well, this sucks because I need 2 pages of people talking here. I need somebody kind of getting this emotional beat that I want so this next thing that comes 2-3 pages later works. So I need this person to draw this, so let me offset that by making sure the third thing I ask them to draw is like really good or really, you know, it's just a matter of like knowing who you're working with and knowing kind of what their strengths are or really what their passions are, and sometimes it takes, like you said, like 9 issues or 8 issues to kind of get there with somebody when you're figuring those things out.
Well, I mean, we kind of like, it helps to play the artist's strengths, and you'll learn what their strengths are over the course of the thing. Like, like Alti is amazing at drawing facial expressions and fight scenes.
Yeah.
So conversations and fights, she's amazing at because everybody everybody looks like they should be delivering the one-liners. Everybody looks like they're surprised when they're supposed to be surprised. But you know, I wouldn't. We had a joke in Awesome Hospital. We were always threatening Matt Diggs to introduce a character called Dr. Things that are hard to draw. So he'd just be like around a corner all the time. He'd just be out of sight, so he wouldn't have to draw.
Wagon wheel
with a horse leg.
Yeah, exactly.
We worked with, who reads Squirrel Girl here? Anybody? Unbeatable Squirrel Girl? Just Ed? Y'all should read Squirrel Girl, it's great. Erica Henderson, we worked with before she did Squirrel Girl, before we were doing X-Men. And there's literally a page in one issue of the comic we did with her, which is called Subatomic Party Girls, where I wrote the page. I'll take the heat on this one. I just wrote, hey, chase scene, you figured it out. That was page 9. move on to page 10.
She did a great job.
She did a great job. We had talked about it beforehand. It's, you know, we wanted something that could only be done visually, and that we couldn't describe, you know, a maze with overlays and family circus lines, you know.
Yeah.
So Erica did a great job on that.
We're
Don't
doing
work with us before 2014. We figure out what we're doing.
We're doing a book with Rob Liefeld called Deadpool Bad Blood, which is like a big Deadpool graphic novel. Hopefully out sometime in the first quarter of next year. And with Rob, it's very different. Like, we got on the phone and we did a big plotting session where we kind of said, okay, well, you know, you've given us your notes as far as what you want to do with this book. You know, you ask us to kind of find the you know, kind of walk it through from the beginning to the end. And you know, we had a big just a big plotting session over the phone, and you know, Rob's just kind of looking for beats from us. And then we figured out kind of what it was going to be. Then we sat down and we wrote a plot and sent that plot to Rob, and Rob's kind of working off that plot. But in this particular situation, he doesn't have to follow our plot at all. He can do whatever he wants to do on that book. Because this is, you know, look, nobody's coming to that book to read, you know, Chad Bowers or Chris Sims. Everybody wants to read Rob Liefeld doing Deadpool again. Yeah. And so the thing is as writers on that one, we're in a position to really adjust kind of what we want to do with that book, because in the back end of it, we're going to have to write around sort of things that he wants to do that maybe we didn't have in our plot, but it's perfectly fine because he's Rob Liefeld. You know, you're kind of working around those things, and so that makes you stretch a completely different set of muscles, I think, than maybe you do as a straightforward scripter, you know, or a straightforward plot, full script kind of writing.
Yeah, and also, it really depends on the experience level that each person's bringing to the table.
Right.
Chad and I have written, at this point, I would say we've written a lot of comics, but we haven't written, you know, Brian Bendis levels of comics.
Yeah, we haven't written hundreds of comics.
Yeah. We've mostly worked with people who are around our age, around our experience level. You know, I think Alti kind of broke in around the same time we did. She did a Secret Wars miniseries, and I think this is her first ongoing. So with us and Alti, it's very much you know, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? How can we make this work? Same way with Matt Diggs when we were doing Awesome Hospital. Same way with Rusty, really. Those were kind of his first comics. And you know, Scott Koblish, who drew the X-Men 92 miniseries, has been around since the 90s and is super experienced. You know, he's worked with George Perez, he's worked with Dan Jurgens, he's worked on Superman, he's worked on X-Men, he's worked on Deadpool. So it made sense for us to let him drive the story in a lot of ways. Just like, you know, Rob Liefeld, like him or not, and we love him, but he's been a successful comics artist for 25 years. You know, coming up on 27 years. So why would we not let him do what he does, and then be the guiding force on that? I think good writers. Any over here? Anybody else? Okay, Ed, you get one because you've been at the table all day.
No.
What they're actually is artists. Usually creators, artists. Usually say, tell someone that's aspiring, okay, learn anatomy, learn this, learn that. What would you give as writers? What would you tell a new writer what they need to learn or be inspired by in terms of writing comics?
Here's something that's really valuable for me, and you know, everybody does it differently, but I read, for a long time I bought any book that had a script in it. Because a lot of books, when they were collected in hardcover or paperback, you know, they throw in some bonus features to get you to buy it twice, and a lot of times they would put in script pages. And so I would go look at the script next to the finished page and see how it all worked. But it was also really valuable for me to read bad comics, to read comics I didn't like. Because if you can figure out why you don't like the bad comics and why you don't like what you don't like about them, then you learn stuff to avoid. Never have one character say to the other, well, as you know. Because why are you saying it? If you both know it. Just don't do that. You pick up things when you read bad comics, but you have to, you know, you can't just read them to kind of goof on them. You have to go okay, why is this bad? And then I feel like that gives you, when you read back over it, you're like, okay, did I do any of the things that I don't like? Because you're always going to be trying to write the comics you like, and hopefully you find the people who line up with them. So that was really valuable for me, I think. I think it's been really valuable in our collaboration because Chad and I work really closely together. We really like the same stuff, but we like it in ways that are just different enough that I think we check back on each other. And like a discussion we have a lot is, okay, does this one-liner make sense, or did you just want like a clever line here that's not necessarily gonna be something this guy would say. When I say Chad and I did a lot, I mean I get that a lot because I love joke characters. What do you think, Chad? What's a good piece of advice?
I think you kind of hit on something there about thinking about it not as like a like thinking about it critically when you're reading other comics, because that I didn't have a lot of script examples when I started writing comics, but I kind of had to put it together and say like, okay, you have to kind of convey what an artist needs to draw. And I think you probably have to have some sort of like artistic aspirations as well. Like you kind of maybe want to draw a little bit. Like most writers, I think in comics will tell you that they kind of start off drawing first. Not everybody. Everybody's got a completely different story. But a lot of artists a lot of guys tend to think very visually and then realize, man, drawing's hard, and then they kind of move on to something else if they can't quite get what they want. So. But I think that, I was big into like taking comics and kind of reverse engineering comics and figuring out what makes them work and what doesn't make them work, and kind of starting from the back and like figuring out if I was going to tell this story, how would I tell this story differently, and finding your favorite comics, like Chris said, also finding some comics that you actually can really immediately say, listen, this just doesn't feel right. Like, why doesn't this feel like Swamp Thing number 36 or whatever, which is a comic I love. But the biggest piece of advice, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday in the production panel, is just like, do the work. Like, sit down and play with it. Don't sit around and think about making comics. Like, make some comics. Make some bad comics. Make some.
The first comic could be bad.
Like make some really bad comics and get them out there. And don't just like sit around and go like, man, is this comic good or is this comic bad? I can't tell. Like, put it out there. Let somebody tell you if it's good or bad. Use feedback. Good, bad, whatever, and figure out kind of what you take away from that, and like experience what it's like to be somebody putting work out there. Yeah. Is the best thing that I can say for a new creator, somebody who wants to write. And then getting back to what we talked about a minute ago, like if you are a writer and you are and what you want to do is comics and not novels, or write plays or write movies, and you want to do comics, then you're gonna have to work with other people, get to the place where you can communicate well with other people, that you leave check your ego at the door, and realize that it's a visual medium, and that your story, while important to you, is really just the place where the story starts. You don't have to get attached to every little bit and piece of the story. Make sure you're willing to collaborate. I have had a lot of people who will come up to the table at cons and stuff like that who are just kind of getting started, and they'll be like, hey, here's my tome. This is what I want to do. And then you start looking through it, and you're like, well, this is pretty cool, this works well. But you can tell right away, before they've even put it in front of an artist and have any kind of feedback from somebody who would potentially want to draw that they're so attached to the concept, they're so attached to what happens on page 36, panel 3, that they are unwilling to give anything. And it's like, man, if you're Mark Miller, that's okay. You know what I mean? If you're Robert Kirkman, that's okay. If you're Neil Gaiman, that's okay. But when you're Chad Bowers and you're 21 and you're doing a comic about, whatever, that's something you're gonna have to probably be willing to give up. And the other thing is that your first concept, which is usually your favorite concept, is probably gonna end up being your worst concept at the end of the day. Don't get attached to anything too strongly, because you'll probably come up with something better. Trust me. Like I was bad about holding concepts back for years. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna do this concept. Let me come up with something else. But at the end of the day, just do your best idea now, and you'll have a good idea and a better idea later.
Yeah. One thing about scripts that I don't think a lot of people know when they start out: everybody's first script is terrible. Everybody's first script is overwritten. That's kind of the deal.
Our scripts are still overwritten. Our
scripts are still overwritten. You've heard us. We've got to go write that thing 3 times to make it all fit. When you write a comic book script, you are writing for an audience of one person. It's completely different from writing prose, from writing nonfiction, from writing anything. Because the only person who ever needs to see your script is the artist. So you need to make sure that you are giving the artist all the information they need, not holding back information from the artist. If you've got somebody whose identity is revealed on page 20, but they first appear like in shadow on page 3, tell the artist who it is on page 3. Because sometimes artists don't read the full script before they start drawing. Be like, hey, this is, we're gonna see somebody who looks like Dr. Octopus. It's actually Aunt May on page 3. We should write that down. That's good. But that also means that you can use shorthand. Like, if we want a thing to look like, you would never say in a novel, like, Batman swung through the sky in a very Alan Davis type pose. But you can tell that to an artist, like, hey, you know when Alan Davis draws Batman, he's got his hands down here, he's got swinging, he's got shoulders up? Yeah. Draw like that. Like, I want to really Alan Davis-y feel. Also, don't actually do that because you don't want to art director.
Yeah, but I mean, like, in that particular case, if you got a character that you want to have, like, a specific costume on, you don't have to go into, okay, it's a Cyclops costume, it's like a blue leotard with yellow boots, and he's got, like, a chest strap with an X right here on his, over his right lapel, or left lapel, and he's wearing his yellow gloves, he's wearing his visor, his hair showing. Yeah, he's in his Jim Lee costume. That's what you sell, Yeah. But at the same time, like, what Chris was saying, if you got somebody who's in shadows, right, you can say, like, yeah, there's a figure in shadow. And you also want the artist to know that this is once you get the language with your artist, it's real easy because you can say, like, yeah, there's a character in shadow, he's standing beside, and nobody sees him, but, parentheses, this is the jackal. Yeah.
Artists don't care about mysteries.
Yeah.
Readers care about mysteries. Artists just need to draw them. They need the information.
Yeah, you and your artist will never read that book.
Yeah.
You and your artist will proofread that book, but you will never read the comics that you make. That's the thing, and that's the thing that's hard as a fan coming to it, that's the hardest part, is to get yourself out of that mentality of, like, trying to think about it like a fan. You'll never read that book with a naked eye.
Yeah. Like, it affects the style of your script too. Like, if you're writing, I'm sure some of you read fantasy novels. You know how they're written. You know how Conan stories are written. You know Lord of the Rings is written. If you're writing a fantasy comic book, you don't have to write like that. You can say, hey, this looks like a Molly Hatchet album cover. It's like Frank Frazetta drawing. And then, as long as the dialogue's right, it's fine. Readers only see the dialogue, and they only see the art. Anything in the panel description, that's where you put the information you need for your artist. And all the artist needs to know is what it should look like. Everything else is up to them. Like, the most direction we give to artists is, I think, sometimes we give camera angles. Sometimes we're like, hey, this is a wide shot that goes across the page, or this is, we're at a high angle so we can see everything going on the lawn of the X-Mansion, But as we go on, our dialogue gets more and more and more, and our panel descriptions get smaller and smaller. Because a panel description can be something as simple as, page 3, panel 1, close up on Wolverine.
And another thing
from
a comic writer standpoint is that I'm not saying, like, you don't need to have a good grasp of, like, language, and you don't need to, like, avoid grammatical errors and those kind of things. But at the same time, you're not writing a novel, right? Like Chris said, it's just you, your editor, and the artist that are going to read the script. Like, you can use idioms, you can just say things that are, like, a lot more conversational. And I think a lot of people get intimidated by writing comic scripts because they're like, oh my gosh, my grammar's not always great. This is this, and this is this, and this is that. And but no, you can just say, hey, what's up? Listen, we're gonna do this. This is how we're gonna do it. This is we're gonna draw these 5 pages. We're gonna do this, and this is what it's gonna look like. We'll have a pterodactyl in panel 1. Needs to be high up in the sky. Make sure it's a giant pterodactyl. It needs to be really big. Probably needs to be orange. Panel 2. Da 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 da. You kind of.
Hey, litterer. When he talks, it needs to look weird.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an actual note from one of our scripts. Hey, when he talks, it looks weirder than everybody else.
Yeah, like you don't have to worry so much about what you're working on and when you're building the story. Aaron Sorkin, who I can take or leave most times with stuff, but I do like Aaron Sorkin stuff. Aaron Sorkin said the art of storytelling when it comes to like a visual storytelling medium. The art is in the dialogue. The art of storytelling is in the dialogue, and that's really true for so much of I think what we do. I mean, obviously the visuals are about what the artist brings to the table, but yeah, like when you're coming up with a script, you don't have to be, James Joyce in the script. You can just do whatever you want to do, and then make sure that your story is told well in the dialogue. That's where you really want to kind of like zero in and make sure that that stuff looks clean, good, and easy to understand.
A comic is a story, and a script is a conversation. And that conversation goes both ways.
Yeah.
There are multiple times when we've had artists, we've got an artist with a page that says, page 4, 7 panels. And it was like, I can do this in 6. Or we're like, 4 panels. And it was like, I kind of need 5. Can I break this out a little bit? It's like, yeah, we'll rearrange the dialogue. We'll work because you're the visual person and you know what you need to do to make this page work. Yeah. Don't be afraid to compromise with your artist because without the artist, it doesn't happen.
We probably have time for like maybe 1 or 2 more questions. So, yes, sir.
Oh, I had a suggestion thinking back on what you asked when you brought up some artists and writers, like some writers start off as an artist. My perfect example of that is One Punch Man.
Yeah.
Like if you got like the very first One Punch Man, if you've seen the very first, you'll know there's a difference between the one he originally created by himself, he was doing both, and the artist was actually playing one. There's a difference.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect example. Actually, I was going to pick up One Punch Man today.
Yeah. Like when you see Camarada comes in, like it becomes like a real comic.
Yeah.
For one thing. But it's good. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering. You said that you can't read your own stuff because you know what's going on with that guy. Does that affect reading stuff that you haven't worked on as well?
I don't know. I mean, I still read plenty of stuff and don't think about like if it's something that I really like there's some stuff that I read and I'm just like, yeah, it's fun, and don't think about it ever again. And there's a lot of like monthly comics that come out like that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who think about it. Probably most people think about our book like that. But at the end of the day, there's some stuff that I look at and it hits me and I'm like, oh man, like I can't read this like for pure enjoyment. Like I'm constantly trying to dissect this. I was talking about somebody the other day about the Multiversity, Grant Morrison's project from a year or so ago at DC, and that was a book that I was really looking forward to for years, leading up to it. But by the time it came out, I was kind of making that transition to like a professional comics writer, and so you get it and you're like, oh my gosh, like I love this book, but I can't enjoy it as much as maybe I could because I'm constantly trying to figure out how this Pax Americana issue works.
Yeah.
Like looking at it, dissecting it. Like now I'm suddenly taking notes on an issue while I'm reading it. You know what I mean? And there's lots of little things like that, and it's not going to be everything, but yeah, it does affect the way you read other comics too, and other things just or what you watch or what you listen to or those kind of things.
Yeah, you end up flaws are more glaring because you're used to trying to avoid them, and then when you go back and read your stuff, your flaws are more glaring.
Yeah. Because
you can't avoid them. But also we'll go back and read Jack Staff or the first JLA story that Morrison and Porter did, and just be like, okay, I love this comic, but how? How did why is this so good? How is this so good? How can we be this good?
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes from, it shifts the way you read things too. Like there was a time when I was reading 80 comics a month. I would read 20 comics every week on Thursday morning. I would get to work, put the stack, stand at the counter and read them, and occasionally sell something to someone. Jim knows. Jim used to come in on Thursday mornings. I'm gonna be like, shh. Ben is about to beat this guy up. But I'm so behind now because I'm either reading stuff for my day job of writing about comics, or I'm reading stuff to talk about, or I'm going back and rereading stuff for research or for inspiration, or the only things I'm current on right now are Archie comics from the 70s, because that's what I buy at cons now. But yeah, it changes the way you read comics in the way that being a musician changes the way you listen to music, or being any job. Being a doctor changes what you ask for when you go to the hospital,
And I used to be super adamant about making sure I never missed a Wednesday at the comic shop. You know what I mean? I would always be in there, and I would always try to read I try to still read most of the my favorite current titles, but also what people are talking about, kind of know what other people are doing. But I've kind of moved away from that because so much of that stuff tends to sort of you may not realize it, but some of that stuff starts seeping into your own work. You know what I mean? Because if you are too influenced by your favorite thing, suddenly your thing is going to start looking more and more like that. So yeah, you just kind of pick up that stuff while you, because when I'm when I was a fan, I would write a comic strip every couple of months or something like that, or kind of play around with ideas. I wasn't really like working on a schedule. I could read and I would forget about something. But if I read a comic today, really like that comic, something about that idea like takes hold, and I sit down to write that night, I'm gonna go, oh, well, I remember that guy did this, and blah, 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 blah. And you're not really cribbing off anybody. It's just what's on your mind. You know what I mean? You're kind of moving in that direction. So yeah, it really changes everything, honestly. Yeah.
You become. I love comics. I read comics all the time. They have been described by my girlfriend as the only thing I truly love. But they're not fun for me in the way they used to be.
Yeah.
They're work now, and I love the job, but they're work.
But I think you have to, when you get to this part, you have to move away from comics. Like that's what we found, is you move further and further away from the day-to-day love and reading and enjoyment of comics, because you still love them and you still understand them.
You know what I've noticed? That from being on this side of the table, is that if you go to cons and you go to tables and you ask people what they're reading, almost nobody's going to be like, oh, I'm reading Avengers. I'm reading Avengers. I'm reading Fantastic Four. I'm reading Squirrel Girl. I am reading Squirrel Girl. It's my favorite. It's the only book I've turned on.
Yeah.
A lot of people say like, yeah, I'm really getting into like Kirby's 2001. Like everybody kind of goes back to read stuff to figure out how to make it all work. Like everybody kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of like going back through Suicide Squad. I'm going back through the Gift and the Maniacs Justice League, and you can see them doing that because they're because that's who you're not competing with.
Right.
You're not competing with Jack Kirby.
It's hard not to be influenced by your contemporaries.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of make yourself not be influenced by your contemporaries, which is very hard to do.
It's great for us because we're writing X-Men 92.
Right, exactly.
So we're reading 25-year-old comics anyway. All right, I think that's it. Thank you all for coming and listening to us talk. That was awesome of you. Thank you. Please come by the table. We've got one more hour of the con, and we've got plenty of books. You can still ask us questions. We got to get out of the room, but we'll be at the table until we close, and then we're out of here. So thank you guys for coming so much.